Have you ever noticed that some women rarely flirt in an obvious way? Especially around men over 50, their interest often shows up quietly instead of directly. They don't want to appear desperate. They don't want to seem too available. So instead of openly expressing attraction, they test the connection through subtle questions. And here's what most men never realize. When a woman feels emotionally drawn to an older man, she almost always asks two very specific kinds of questions. They sound casual on the surface, but underneath, they carry meaning. Before we get into them, take a second to engage with this conversation. If you've ever looked back and realized a woman was giving you signals you completely missed at the time, you already understand how subtle attraction can be. Most men don't miss interest because women aren't interested. They miss it because they misunderstand how feminine communication works. A lot of mature men believe they become invisible with age, especially to younger women or even women their own age. But the reality is often the opposite. Many women are naturally drawn to men who carry calmness, emotional stability, and life experience. The issue usually isn't attraction, it's awareness. Women rarely reveal interest in a direct way. Instead, they observe. They pay attention to your energy, your emotional steadiness, and whether you notice the small openings they create. That's how feminine psychology often operates. When a woman begins seeing a man as emotionally safe, grounded, and potentially intimate, her behavior shifts. Conversations stop being purely casual. She starts asking things that quietly reveal what she's really trying to understand. She's looking for three things. First, whether you feel emotionally stable and secure within yourself. Second, whether there's actual space in your life for connection. And third, whether you're perceptive enough to recognize genuine interest without needing everything spelled out. That's exactly where these two important questions begin to appear. But to really understand them, you have to understand the psychology behind why women ask them in the first place. Many men over 50 grew up in a world where attraction was often communicated more directly. But modern dating dynamics are different. Even emotionally mature women tend to express interest indirectly, especially at the beginning. They usually won't say, "I'm attracted to you. I want to get closer to you. I'm thinking about you romantically." Instead, they explore. A woman often hides attraction inside curiosity because there's a quiet fear underneath it all. If she becomes too obvious and the interest isn't returned, she risks feeling exposed or rejected. So rather than openly revealing her feelings, she wraps them inside harmless-looking questions. And if a man completely misses those openings, she often won't repeat them. That's something many men fail to understand. Women rarely keep extending the same emotional invitation over and over again. If it isn't noticed, they usually pull back quietly. Feminine communication is layered. Men often express attraction through action. They offer help, protection, attention, or support. Women often express attraction through emotional exploration. They ask questions that create closeness without directly admitting why. And while there are countless questions women might ask during ordinary conversation, there are two that consistently appear when she's trying to sense intimacy with a mature man. But before revealing them clearly, recognize something important. These questions are not really about information. They're about emotional connection. She's trying to feel your energy beneath your words. Is this man emotionally calm? Is he steady? Is he open? Can I move closer without feeling rejected or shut out? Think of these questions like emotional bridges, small invitations placed carefully between you and her. She wants to see whether you step forward with presence or remain unaware. Most men answer these questions literally and move on. But a grounded man understands there's usually a deeper layer beneath them, because when she asks, she isn't collecting facts. She's checking alignment. She's seeing whether you notice what's happening underneath the conversation. A woman who feels drawn to you doesn't necessarily care about hearing impressive stories or seeing performances. What she wants to feel is emotional steadiness, presence, awareness, calm, masculine energy. That's why these two questions matter so much. The first question she asks is designed to uncover one thing: emotional availability. Not your schedule, not your calendar, your openness. She wants to know whether your life has room for connection, whether you're emotionally open or emotionally shut down behind routines and habits. This question is psychological more than practical. It's her way of quietly asking, can someone get close to you? Do you actually let people in? Is there space in your life for me? Most men completely overlook this because the wording sounds casual. The second question explores something even deeper, your inner direction, not your career, not your achievements, your sense of purpose. Women feel safest around men who seem emotionally anchored, men who know who they are, men who move through life with steadiness instead of drifting aimlessly. Through this question, she's trying to feel, is this man emotionally alive? Does he carry quiet confidence? What would it feel like to be close to his presence? A woman may initially notice a man's appearance, but emotional attraction deepens when she becomes attracted to his energy. And this question becomes the doorway into understanding that energy. For men over 50, these moments matter even more. By that stage of life, many women assume an older man has already experienced most of his emotional chapters. So before stepping closer, they want reassurance that they won't simply become another temporary part of his routine. These questions may sound soft, simple, almost invisible, but they reveal whether there's room in your world and whether you're still emotionally engaged with life itself. You can miss compliments, you can overlook body language, but if you fail to recognize these subtle emotional invitations, you often miss the exact moment a woman quietly opened the door. And once that door closes, most women don't reopen it. So, what are the two questions? The first one is usually some version of, do you spend a lot of time alone? On the surface, it sounds innocent. But underneath, she's asking something much deeper. Is there space for someone in your life? Women phrase it differently depending on personality. Do you usually go places by yourself? You seem like someone who enjoys being alone. Are you seeing anyone these days or mostly doing your own thing? Do you keep to yourself a lot? This isn't really about loneliness, it's about access. A woman only asks this when she has already imagined herself somewhere within your world. She's trying to understand whether your life is emotionally open or completely closed off. If she felt nothing for you, your routines wouldn't matter to her. But when she feels attracted to the calmness, security, and grounded energy many mature men naturally carry, she quietly wants to know one thing. Would there be room for me here? Most men answer these questions too literally. Yeah, I spend a lot of time alone. Not really. Depends on the week. But a grounded man understands there's something deeper hidden underneath the words. She isn't only asking about your habits. She's quietly exploring your openness. She's trying to feel whether there's emotional space in your life for closeness. And this is where your response matters. The key is to answer with calmness, balance, and quiet confidence. Open, but never needy. You might say something like, I enjoy my own space, but I'm always open to good company. Or, I like my routines, but the right person can definitely make life more meaningful. Notice the energy behind those responses. They communicate emotional openness without sounding empty or dependent. They subtly suggest that someone special could be welcomed into your world without making it seem like you're searching desperately for attention. That balance is incredibly important. Women are naturally drawn toward men who feel emotionally available while still remaining centered within themselves. Open, but not lonely. Warm, but not chasing. Strong, but not emotionally shut down. When you respond this way, she doesn't just hear your words, she feels emotional safety. She feels possibility, and that emotional comfort naturally leads to the second question, the one that reveals even deeper attraction. The second question usually sounds like this: what are you looking for these days? And despite how casual it sounds, this question is almost never casual. It's not random conversation. It's not polite small talk. It's a woman quietly exploring whether you could fit into her emotional future. If she felt no attraction toward you, she probably wouldn't ask something this personal at all. Questions like this carry vulnerability. They expose interest, and women tend to reserve them for men they already see as potentially meaningful. Of course, she may phrase it differently. What direction are you moving in these days? What do you want at this stage of life? What matters to you now? What are you hoping to build for yourself? What are you focusing on lately? But emotionally, they all point toward the same thing. She wants to understand your inner direction. For a woman to feel emotionally or physically safe opening up to a man, especially an older man, she needs to feel that he knows who he is. She wants to feel steadiness, purpose, intention. She's trying to sense, is this man emotionally alive? Does he move through life with clarity? Does he carry himself with purpose? Or is he simply drifting through routines? Women don't deeply invest themselves in men who feel disconnected from life. They invest in men who feel anchored, and this is where many men accidentally break the emotional tension without realizing it. When a man responds with, I'm just taking life day by day. I don't really know anymore. I'm just trying to stay peaceful. She often interprets something entirely different underneath those words. She hears uncertainty, passivity, emotional drift. And regardless of age, women rarely feel emotionally secure around drift. Now, that doesn't mean you need some dramatic life mission or a perfectly planned future. What matters is direction. You only need to communicate that you are still engaged with life itself. Something like, I'm building a calmer and more meaningful chapter these days. Or, I'm focusing on experiences, growth, and the right kind of connection. Or, I want relationships and moments that feel natural and genuine, not forced. Responses like these do something powerful psychologically. First, they show movement instead of stagnation. Second, they communicate emotional clarity. You know what matters to you. And third, they quietly allow her to imagine herself somewhere inside your future. That's what creates emotional pull. Because here's something many mature men underestimate. Women are deeply attracted to men who still feel alive inside, not just physically present, emotionally awake. And these two questions are deeply connected to female attraction because women don't test men randomly. They test based on emotional readiness. The first question measures openness. Is there space in this man's life for closeness? The second measures direction. Does this man move through life with intention? And together, those two qualities create something incredibly magnetic. A man who is emotionally open while also grounded in purpose naturally feels safe to move toward. Women do not require perfection. They require clarity, and clarity creates emotional safety. Emotional safety allows desire to grow. That's why these questions appear so consistently, even when the woman herself may not consciously realize why she's asking them. Picture a real-life moment. Maybe you're talking in a cafe, a bookstore, at a dinner gathering, or even online. The conversation flows naturally. There's warmth in her tone. She smiles a little longer than necessary. Her attention stays on you. Then suddenly she asks, so, do you spend a lot of time alone? That's her first emotional step toward you. She's opening a small door. If you respond with calm awareness, the connection deepens. But if you answer mechanically or shut the moment down, the emotional energy fades almost instantly. Then later, sometimes minutes later, sometimes days, comes the second question. So what are you looking for these days? That is her second step. This is the moment where she begins deciding whether she could emotionally move closer to you. If your response carries direction and emotional steadiness, she feels possibility. If it carries confusion or emotional numbness, she usually retreats quietly. Most men think these moments are random. They aren't. They are emotional checkpoints, and women rarely ask these questions unless they already feel some level of attraction. Because here's the truth most men overlook. A woman who wants deeper connection usually won't announce it openly. She won't confess attraction directly. She won't force herself into your world. She won't clearly say, I want intimacy with you. Instead, she asks, are you emotionally open? Do you spend much time alone? And are you emotionally alive? What are you looking for these days? These questions are never just about information. They are about your energy. And when you learn to recognize them, you stop missing the subtle moments where attraction quietly begins. Because women often open the emotional door only once. And if there's one thing worth remembering, let it be this. A woman rarely tests your words alone. She tests your awareness, your calmness, your presence. The men who understand this stop chasing obvious signals and start recognizing emotional invitations hidden beneath ordinary conversation. And once you begin noticing them, attraction becomes much easier to understand. Now, here's another important truth many men overlook, especially during emotionally meaningful times of the year like Christmas. Connection is never really about what you own or what you can provide materially. It's about how deeply someone feels understood around you. Christmas especially intensifies emotions for many women. It brings memories, reflection, hope, loneliness, nostalgia, and emotional sensitivity all to the surface at once. That's why what touches a woman most during this season often has very little to do with expensive gifts. What matters is emotional presence. And the first thing that truly creates that connection is deep listening, not simply hearing her words, but listening for the emotions underneath them. During the holidays, people naturally become more reflective. They think about the year behind them, relationships, disappointments, hopes, and the kind of life they truly want moving forward. When you genuinely listen without distraction, without interrupting, without trying to fix everything, you create something rare: emotional safety. A woman notices when a man is truly attentive because real listening communicates emotional investment. It tells her, "What you feel matters to me." And in a world where most people only half listen while waiting to speak, that kind of presence becomes unforgettable.